The following film will outline the traditional African burial ceremony of the Bakweri tribe in Cameroon. This ceremony will be juxtaposed with Western surroundings, namely the New Cross area. As soon as a spouse dies, the surviving spouse is stripped of all clothing and redressed in the proper mourning attire. This consists of a bark cloth robe, some leaves, and suspended pepper seeds from a band that is tied around the head. The mourner must now carry a small knife as well. The spirit of the recently deceased is said to haunt the place in which they died for the next 3 days. The knife is used for protection against the spirit. Depending on the sex of the deceased, family members of that same sex are then required to wash the body and then prepare for burial. The surviving spouse is then brought a substitute spouse with whom sexual intercourse takes place. Meanwhile, the male calls out words of strength. The corpse is then buried in the house in which they died. The grave is usually a shaft or an alcove. The body is then placed in the alcove and walled off so that when the grave is filled, the earth does not touch the body. If the surviving spouse is a woman, cooking is prohibited during the mourning process. Another woman is required to come to the residence and cook for the widow. Only small quantities of food are eaten for the first 3 days. During this fasting period, the last meal of the day must be eaten before dark. The mourner must also chew a few grains of pepper, and while spitting them out they must say, "We part today, let me never more dream of you." The following morning after the burial, the mourner, especially a widow, must be heard lamenting loudly. If the deceased is an important man, all his female relatives and other women from his village are expected to spend the whole morning in lamentations. This lamenting might last for a month or more. The morning after the burial sees little food, wine, and if the deceased were a snuff taker, a little snuff is placed on the grave. Fresh food, wine, and snuff are thereafter placed on the grave each morning for a week. On the second day after the burial, the relatives of the dead must go to his or her farm to gather food for the next day's wake. After acquiring the necessary food, the farm is then destroyed. After 3 days have passed, the spirit leaves the house, which marks the end of the mourning period.